very big welcome to you. This is the Clarity Challenge, and my name is Mason I.B. West. One of the biggest challenges that you will find in relationships today, after over 2 decades of engagement in relationship counseling and mentorship, one of the biggest challenges I've realized is that when people get married, couples are not able to accept the differences between them and their partners. Couples are not able to recognize that there will be difference, accept those differences, then celebrate those differences. People are not able to come to terms with that. And it is probably the biggest reason for marital failure. Not just about the differences within the catchment of our differences, because some differences are attractive, some are beautiful, some are amazing, because even from face value you can see that they blend. But you see, within those differences there are pockets of weaknesses and strengths. Sometimes the differences are not two strengths, they are a weakness and a strength. So there are cases where the partner is weak in this area, the other partner is strong in the same area. This partner is strong in this area, the other partner is weak in that same area. Coming to terms with your partner's weakness, being as a difference, being able to recognize it, identify it, being able to accept it, and then being able to celebrate them even in their weakness is the biggest challenge for most relationships. And that is why our conversation starter for today is profound. Our conversation starter for today, it's amazing. You don't want to miss it. So today we asked a couple of questions. Well, for the Clarity Challenge, our commitment, our focus is about creating a platform where we are able to introduce conversation starters that help to reveal gray areas, taken for granted, areas that partners don't want to talk about, areas that partners are evasive, they avoid discussions. Sometimes because they don't want to be misunderstood, sometimes because they got something to hide, sometimes because it reveals their insecurities. But there is a sense in which if we do not hold conversations in these areas of very sensitive areas, they usually become the flashpoints, the crisis points in the marriage. Those things we ignore become the first things that face us in the marriage proper. And so the Clarity Challenge helps us to bring those discussions, those conversations to the fore. As on a daily basis, we introduce conversation starters as questions, as theirs, as tasks for our couples on the platform to begin to answer to right on the platform, both for their partners to see and then for all the participants to be part of the conversations. And then as we exchange, what happens is that you get to know your partner way beyond. Literally, people come to the Clarity Challenge and come to know themselves. Literally, they also come to know their partner, who they always thought they had known. That's amazing. And so today we asked several couple of questions. One of the first questions we asked was, what are your strengths? Then we asked, what are your weaknesses? Then we asked, what are your partner's strengths? What are their weaknesses? And then we asked, how does these strengths and weaknesses complement each other? There's a sixth question we asked that maybe is not part of this, but because of the inferences and the explanations I need to make from that, I'm just going to mention that we also asked another question, how can I better meet your emotional needs and desires? We require partners to ask themselves, how can I better meet your emotional needs and your desires? We did all of that question among several others, but I just want to focus on this for the purpose of these presentations. And if you're married already, the question, and even if you're not married, one of the questions that you must have at the back of your mind as we hold this conversation is this. Is there something about your partner that you've been complaining about? You've been complaining about it forever without a change. Pencil it down. Number two, is it possible that if you approach that differently, you're complaining about it, you've been talking about it, you've been referencing it, you've been holding discussions about it, is it possible that if you approach things differently, is it possible that you could have a better result? That's what this conversation is about. And so we asked those 5 questions, and modern couples on the platform downloaded what it is that they believed was the weaknesses, or were the weaknesses of their partners. And then we also asked, they also listed out what they consider the strengths of their partner. Some of them gave submissions like, my partner gets angry too quickly that, even when you don't expect her to. Somebody said, and my partner is always silent and snobbish whenever they get angry. Someone else said, my partner has some level of disrespect for me. Another person was like, my partner finds it difficult to forgive. Somebody said their partner deals with procrastination. Another person said their partner takes up too many responsibility at the same time. Someone else says that their partner can be carried away easily by things. Someone else was talking about the fact that a partner does not know how to appreciate. They're not appreciative. They're not expressive, especially when it comes to affection. Someone else said their partner refuses to do set goals because of fear. Someone else talked about the fact that their partner was not too romantic. Another person said their partner was too self-conscious. Someone says their partner is not able or does not know how to engage in long phone calls. So this person likes to hold very long conversations on the phone, probably because they're not in the same location, and so for them long conversations are critical. But their partner is not good with long conversations, and these were all penciled down as weaknesses for their partners, and this is incredible. The only challenge I had was everything they listed out there. Can we really say these are weaknesses? Are they weaknesses, or are they products of insufficient information or insufficient training? Is it something that a little some more information can correct? Are they really weaknesses? Those are the things that are going on in my mind as I got those lists. But we'll come to that. Now, the next thing I noticed for the 6th question, where we ask, how can I meet your emotional needs? How can I better meet your emotional needs and your desires? Now, one of the couples on the platform gave this response. One particular partner in a team gave this response. She said, I'm still learning to be romantic. So accept my level of romance. Just accept me as I am. Profound submission. This is okay. This is what we expect from anybody. And so it was good. It was good until she made a next remark. She said, when refusing, now she was talking to the same partner, she was asking to accept her the way she is. When she was now talking about that partner's own weakness, she said, when you refuse to do something, when refusing to do something, think how that affects me too, and then think about the consequences, what it can cause. So now it has switched from her weakness of not being too romantic to his weakness of what looks like being this person probably has issues with procrastination. This person probably is not a go-getter, is not a driven person, is not a motivated person, or is not somebody that you can easily get to jumpstart a process. And so she's saying, when you're refusing to do something, think how that affects me. So this person's inability, incapacitation, should I say, this person's weakness is being interpreted by her as a refusal to do. That's the point. Now, when she was not romantic enough, she didn't consider it a refusal to do. She considered it a level that need to be accepted, a process, a growth process that need to be accepted for the time being. But when it came to her partner's own growth process or inability or weakness or incapacitation, she did not see it as a process. She saw it as a refusal to do. Now, this is so profound. This is always the crisis point in relationship. This is always the breaking point in relationships, where one partner wants to be considered, to be understood when it comes to their own limitations. But when it also comes to the other partner's limitations, they don't want to understand. They don't think it can be an incapacitation. They think this is a deliberate attempt to frustrate, a deliberate attempt to wish hunt, to stonewall, to make things difficult for them. Unless we come to terms with what a weakness is, the implications of a weakness, the gravity of a weakness, limitations, setbacks, we are not able to understand our partners, we are not able to cooperate with them, we're not able to connect with them, we're not able to synergize, collaborate, function, work together, agree together. And it can be great, it can be grievous, it can be terrible. And so our discourse is about really putting our fingers on what a weakness is. And to take this one step further, one of the things we need to embrace is God's own recognition for human weaknesses. God recognizes that inherent in every human being is some kind of weakness. God himself recognizes that everybody is not strong in the same area or in every area. It's profound. We could see that in Romans chapter 14, verse 1-4. Expressly stated, profoundly stated. In Romans chapter 14, verse 4, the Bible says in verse 1, him that is weak in faith receive here. So God is saying, if you find somebody who is weak in faith, in this particular example, the person's weakness is in the area of faith. So it's a spiritual weakness, a spiritual limitation. He said, if you find a person that is weak in faith, he said you should receive him. Receive him means accept him. Accept him means accommodate him, embrace him, celebrate him. That's what it means to receive him. He says in the next line, he says, but not to doubtful disputations. If you claim to have received somebody, a partner, a weak person, but you are engaged in arguments as to their weaknesses, why they're not supposed to be weak, why they refuse to do certain things, why it's not acceptable, why they have to change, why unless they change this cannot work. If you claim to have received somebody, but all you do is disputations, then you have not received the person. You have not accepted the person. And unless you have accepted the person, there will be no synergy. There will be no each one dissolving into the other to form one unified entity. Listen, the two becoming one flesh is impossible unless you receive your partner. To break it down further, in verse 2, it begins to use a physical illustration to demonstrate the conceptualization of weakness as exemplified in the scripture. In verse 2 it says, for one person believes that he may eat all things, but another person who is weak eats only herbs. So one person eats only herbs because his body cannot take eating everything. So he becomes a vegetarian. Whereas the other person can eat just anything and move on. Some people move into a new climate, move into a new environment, and whatever they eat, they throw up. Their system can handle it. Their system can handle it. He says in verse 3, the person that can eat anything should not despise the person that cannot eat everything. It says that the person who cannot eat everything should not judge the person who eats everything. Why? For God has received him. Listen, if God has received the weak person, you have no right not to receive them. You have no right to reject them. As a matter of fact, you have an option while you're dating to decide whether or not this is what you want to spend the rest of your life with. But as soon as you've accepted them you have demonstrated acceptance by following them to the altar or taking them to the altar, you have no right to be selective in your receiving. You can't do that. No, you can't. God has received him, so you can't judge him. The next verse says, who are you to judge another man's servant? To his own master he stands or falls. Yea, he shall be held up. Why? For God is able to make him stand. Listen, God is going to hold him up because God is able to make him stand. Now, this is so profound. And I like the way the Amplified Version renders it. It says, as for the man who is a weak believer, welcome him into your fellowship, but not to criticize his opinions or pass judgments on his scruples and perplex him with discussions. A lot of the times, all through the lifespan of most marriages, this is all we do. This is all we do. We claim to love people. We go into a relationship with them. We take them to the altar. We say, I do, only to come back home and start criticizing their opinions, come back home and start passing judgment on their scruples, and then beginning to perplex them with all kinds of discussions and conversations and arguments, placing embargoes and placing sanctions on people. It's not going to work. Just the same way you want to be accepted. It's not going to work if you don't accept your partner. This is critical. This is important. Okay, look at verse 2 in the Amplified Version. It says, one man's faith permits him to believe he may eat everything, while a weaker one limits his eating to vegetables. Let him who eats not look down on or despise the person who abstains, and let not him who abstains criticize and pass judgment on him who eats. Why? For God has accepted and welcomed him. God has accepted and welcomed him. Sweetheart, this is so important. Therefore, as we do our relationships, from the time of dating to the time of courtship to the time of engagements, even up to the time when we finally say I do, as issues come up, as our differences begin to pop up, as behavioral tendencies begin to pop up, one of the first things you want to do to be able to manage this kind of situation is to begin to specify the areas of concern. Take a piece of paper and pencil down those behavioral tendencies that are of concern to you. You want to take them down. You want to pencil down. Whether it's anger issues, whether it's insecurity, whether it is infidelity, whether it is financial instability, whether it is joblessness, whether it is impatience, whether it is poor dressing, whether it is alcoholism, whether it is people are fun freaks, whether it is that people don't know how to keep to time, they keep late, whether it is that people cannot keep relationships going, whatever are the issues you're dealing with. Some people can be so insecure that they are secretive. Whatever it is, that is the behavioral pattern of your partner, that is a source of concern. You take them down, write them down. It's so important. Now, if you're able to write it down, then that takes us to the next stage. That next stage is that we have to now categorize behavioral patterns. We have to put them into categories. That's the only way we can deal with this. And I have categorized behavioral patterns into 3. Once you can specify them, then categorize them. Number 1, we categorize them into 3. 1, mistakes. 2, wrongdoings. And 3, weaknesses. You have to be able to do this compartmentalization, because once you can identify the problem, then the problem is half solved. Trust me. So we want to be able to categorize them, compartmentalize them, and then take it to the next level. Once you can clearly define whether your partner is dealing with a weakness, whether they're dealing with a mistake, whether they're dealing with a wrongdoing, the next thing you have to do is that you must accept the fact of who your partner is instead of fighting them. Listen, I don't care what it is. Fighting your partner passively or actively won't change the situation. Whether they're making a mistake, fighting doesn't fix it. Whether they are doing in the wrongdoing, fighting doesn't fix it. If they're dealing with a mistake, fighting doesn't fix it. You must come to terms with the fact that this is who your partner is now. This is what they're dealing with. This is what they're struggling with. The next thing you are thinking is, so now this is the problem. How do we navigate around this problem? What do we do to fix this problem? What's the best approach to solving this problem? If you've been trying to correct them, if you've been trying to get them to change, if you've been complaining and you're not getting a result, it's only common sense to begin to ask yourself, so what can I do differently? I think it was Albert Einstein or Thomas Edison who said, you can't, if you try to solve a problem in the same way and you're not getting result, or you're trying to solve a problem with the mindset that created the problem, or you've been engaging a particular approach to solve a problem without a result, it doesn't make sense. It's insanity of mind to maintain approach and expect a change in result. No, you're not going to get the result you're looking for. You're not going to get that. So first and foremost, accept the reality of what the situation is. Don't fight it. The next thing, navigate around it with a solution mindset, not compounding it. And how you're going to do that is to try to recognize, identify if what your partner is dealing with is a weakness. So we're going to talk about partner weakness recognition. This is important. We're going to find out whether what your partner is dealing with is some kind of weakness, or whether it's some kind of mistake, or it's some kind of wrongdoing, unless you come to terms with what exactly they are struggling. You see, because if it's a mistake, you cannot approach a mistake the way you will approach a weakness. No, you can't do that. If it's a weakness, you can't approach it like it's a wrongdoing. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You'll be fighting a person. And don't expect someone to fold their hands and watch you fight them. They're going to defend themselves. And things are going to get messier than what you had in mind. So accept the fact that your partner has a weakness. Stop fighting them. Think about how you can join forces with them. If you must fight, join forces with them to combat the weakness. And if you're going to combat the weakness, then you must be sensitive, because the line between fighting a weakness and fighting a person is so thin that you can miss it. No, you must not fight their persons thinking you are fighting their weaknesses. They're going to stand up to it, and you're not going to like what is going to come out of that. And so I'm going to discuss about how do we separate a weakness from a mistake and then from a wrongdoing, and then how do we now go about dealing with managing partner weakness management. So we're going to talk about partner weakness identification or recognition, and then graduate it from there to partner weakness management. I trust that you got value in this introduction. I'll be right back to take you to the next level. Thank you so much. I'll see you again.